The pine farm rested quietly at the edge of a small valley, far from busy roads and loud neighborhoods. Tall pine trees stood in neat rows, their green branches heavy and strong. A light winter wind moved through them, creating a soft sound that felt calm and steady. Snow covered the ground in thin layers, and the air smelled fresh and clean. This land belonged to Daniel. Daniel bought the pine farm only a few months ago. It was not an easy decision. He spent many years saving money, working long hours, and planning carefully. When the chance finally came, he chose this land because it felt right. It was peaceful. It was honest. It felt like a fresh start. Daniel was not a loud man. He preferred quiet work and simple routines. Every morning, he woke up early, put on his coat, and walked the farm. He checked the trees, cleared small paths, and greeted visitors with a polite smile. During Christmas season, families came to choose their trees. Children laughed. Parents took photos. Daniel helped them tie the trees to their cars and wished them a happy holiday. The farm slowly became part of his life. The land was outside the city, but near a large housing area managed by a home owners association. Daniel knew about the HOA, but his farm was not part of it. The land records were clear. The papers were signed. Taxes were paid. Everything was legal and proper. Daniel never imagined trouble would come from people who did not own the land. One afternoon, the sky was gray and heavy. Daniel was near the storage shed, fixing a loose wooden board, when he heard the sound of a vehicle. Gravel cracked under tires. The sound was sharp and unexpected. A black SUV drove up the narrow road leading into the farm. Daniel stood up slowly and watched. The SUV did not stop at the entrance sign. It drove straight onto the property. Two men stepped out. They wore dark jackets with matching logos on the back. The words read HOA Security. Daniel felt confused, but he stayed calm. He wiped his hands and walked toward them. The two men did not greet him. Instead, they walked between the trees, looking around as if they already owned the place. One of them pulled out a roll of bright tape. He began wrapping it around several pine trees, one after another. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He spoke clearly and politely. "Excuse me. Can I help you?" One of the men turned slowly. His face showed no surprise. No respect either. "These trees are marked for community use," the man said. His voice was firm, like he was giving an order. Daniel looked at the tape, then back at the man. "This is private land," Daniel said. "I own this farm." The man barely reacted. "This area supports the nearby neighborhood. These trees are needed for shared spaces." Daniel stayed calm, but his mind raced. "I have never been contacted about this," he said. "You cannot mark trees on my land." The second man stepped closer. "We are authorized," he said. "We will return tonight with a truck." Daniel felt the cold more deeply now. "Who authorized you?" he asked. The first man shrugged. "Talk to the HOA office if you have questions." Daniel felt anger rising, but he kept his voice steady. "You cannot take anything from here," he said. The men did not argue. They did not explain. They simply walked back to the SUV. Before leaving, the first man turned and said something that stayed in Daniel's mind. "Do not interfere." The SUV drove away, leaving deep tire marks in the snow. Daniel stood alone among the trees. The bright tape stood out sharply against the green branches. He walked slowly from tree to tree, touching the bark, feeling the rough surface under his gloves. Each tree had taken years to grow. Each one mattered. Daniel had not worked this hard just to lose his land to people who thought power meant ownership. He returned to his small office near the shed and pulled out his folder. Inside were land deeds, purchase contracts, maps, and official letters. Everything showed one clear truth. The pine farm belonged to him. Daniel sat quietly for a long moment. He did not panic. He did not rush. He thought carefully. He knew that reacting with anger would not help. He needed to act smart. Outside, the wind grew stronger. Snow began to fall again, slowly covering the tire tracks left behind. Daniel looked out the window at the marked trees. "They think I will stay silent," he said to himself. But Daniel had learned something from his past. When someone tries to take what you built, silence only invites more trouble. That evening, as the sky darkened and the lights of nearby houses came on, Daniel made his decision. If they returned, they would not find an easy target. They would find a man ready to protect what was his. That night, Daniel did not sleep well. The image of the bright tape around his trees stayed in his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the black SUV driving back onto the farm. He heard the words again. "Do not interfere." Before sunrise, Daniel was already awake. He put on his coat, grabbed a flashlight, and walked outside. The air was cold, and the ground was hard under his boots. The pine trees stood quietly, just as they always had. The marked trees were still there. No truck had come during the night. Daniel felt relief, but he did not relax. He walked the entire farm, checking the fence lines and the entrance road. Everything looked normal. Still, something felt wrong. The confidence of the security men bothered him. They acted as if the land already belonged to them. After breakfast, Daniel sat at his desk and turned on his laptop. He searched for the HOA website connected to the nearby housing area. It did not take long to find it. The site looked official and well-designed. It listed board members, rules, and contact details. Daniel read carefully. There was no mention of his land. No record of shared property near the pine farm. No right to use or remove trees outside the neighborhood area. Daniel printed several pages and placed them in his folder. Next, he called the county land office. He spoke calmly and explained the situation. The woman on the phone listened carefully. She confirmed what Daniel already knew. "The farm is fully private," she said. "No association has authority there." Daniel thanked her and asked for written confirmation. She agreed and said she would email the document that afternoon. That gave Daniel some comfort. Still, he knew paper alone might not stop people who believed they were untouchable. Later that day, families returned to the farm to choose Christmas trees. Daniel greeted them with his usual calm smile. He did not mention the problem. He did not want to worry anyone. A young boy pointed at one of the taped trees. "Why is that one marked?" the boy asked. Daniel gently removed the tape. "It was a mistake," he said. "That tree is staying right here." The parents smiled, unaware of the tension behind the moment. As the sun lowered, Daniel noticed a familiar shape at the end of the road. The black SUV returned. This time, it did not come alone. A white truck followed behind it. Daniel's heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. He walked toward the entrance before the vehicles could reach the trees. The SUV stopped. The same two men stepped out. They looked confident. The man with the tape smiled slightly. "We told you we would be back," he said. Daniel stood firmly in front of them. "You are trespassing," he replied. "This land is private." The second man pointed toward the truck. "We are here to collect the trees marked for community use." Daniel held up his folder. "I spoke with the county land office," he said. "You have no rights here. If you take anything, it will be theft." The first man laughed softly. "You do not understand how this works." Daniel looked directly at him. "I understand ownership," he said. "And I understand the law." The men exchanged looks. The driver of the truck stayed inside, watching. The first man stepped closer. "Our neighborhood needs these trees. The board approved it." Daniel did not raise his voice. "Your board does not control this land," he said. "You need to leave." The man's smile faded. "This will not end well for you," he said. Daniel took out his phone. "If you do not leave now, I will call local authorities. The second man hesitated. Are you serious? Daniel nodded. Very serious. For a long moment, no one spoke. The wind moved through the trees. Families nearby watched from a distance, sensing something was wrong. Finally, the first man raised his hand. Fine, he said. We will be back with proper approval. Daniel did not respond. The SUV turned around. The truck followed. Gravel cracked again as they left the farm. Daniel stood still until they were gone. That night, Daniel locked the gate and placed clear signs near the entrance. Private property. No entry without permission. He also called a local friend named Mark, who worked as a land surveyor. Mark came the next morning and helped Daniel place boundary markers along the edges of the farm. Bright posts clearly showed where the private land began. Mark shook his head as he worked. Some associations think they own everything nearby, he said. They count on people giving up. Daniel looked at the trees. I will not give up, he said. By afternoon, Daniel received the email from the county land office. It clearly stated that the pine farm was not under any association control. He printed it and added it to his folder. That evening, Daniel sat by the window, watching the road. He knew this was not over. People who act with that much confidence do not stop easily. They return with pressure, with letters, with threats wrapped in polite language. Daniel was ready. He did not buy the farm just to sell trees. He bought it to build something honest. Something that belonged to him. Outside, the snow fell again, covering the ground in white. The trees stood tall, quiet, and strong. Just like Daniel. The next morning began quietly, but Daniel felt a strange weight in the air. The farm looked the same as always. Tall pine trees. Fresh snow. Clear paths between rows. Yet something felt different. It felt like the calm before another challenge. Daniel started his day early. He checked the gate, the signs, and the new boundary markers placed with Mark's help. Everything was clear and visible. Anyone entering the land would know it was private. By mid-morning, Daniel's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number. Daniel answered calmly. Hello. A smooth voice replied. This is Linda from the Pine Valley Home Owners Association. We need to discuss your property. Daniel took a breath. You already tried to take trees from my land, he said. There is nothing to discuss. The voice stayed polite. There has been a misunderstanding. Our records show the land supports community areas. Daniel stayed firm. Your records are wrong, he said. The county confirmed that. There was a short pause. We would like to meet in person, Linda said. It is better to resolve this peacefully. Daniel agreed to meet at the HOA office that afternoon. He believed facing the issue directly was better than avoiding it. The office building was modern and clean. Large windows. Smooth floors. Framed photos of the neighborhood lined the walls. Daniel felt out of place in his work coat, but he stood tall. Linda greeted him with a practiced smile. She was joined by two board members. One was an older man named Robert. The other was a woman named Claire. They invited Daniel to sit. Linda began speaking first. Our community decorates shared spaces every Christmas, she said. The trees from your land would benefit everyone. Daniel placed his folder on the table. My land is not shared, he said. It is private. Robert leaned forward. The farm sits next to our neighborhood, he said. It has always been used by the community. Daniel opened his folder and slid documents across the table. Not legally, he said. These are the land records. Claire glanced at the papers but did not touch them. We are offering compensation, she said. You could allow us to remove a limited number of trees. Daniel shook his head. You already tried to take them without asking, he said. That is not acceptable. Linda's smile tightened. We prefer cooperation, she said. Conflict benefits no one. Daniel looked directly at her. Respect prevents conflict, he said. The room grew quiet. Robert cleared his throat. If you refuse, he said, this may become complicated. Daniel stood up slowly. The only complication is your assumption, he said. My answer is no. Daniel left the office without shaking hands. Back at the farm, Daniel noticed more visitors than usual. Cars parked along the road. People walked between the trees without greeting him. Some carried measuring tapes. Others took photos. Daniel approached a small group near the back of the farm. Can I help you? He asked. A woman answered quickly. We were told this land was open for community planning. Daniel felt anger rise, but he controlled it. You were told wrong, he said. This is private property. Please leave. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked annoyed. One man crossed his arms. The HOA said this was allowed. Daniel pointed toward the entrance signs. The county law says otherwise, he said. Slowly, the group left. That evening, Daniel received several emails. Some were polite. Others were sharp. They accused him of being selfish. They said he was ruining a holiday tradition. Daniel read them carefully but did not reply. Instead, he took action. The next day, Daniel hired a local legal advisor named Paul. Paul reviewed all documents and confirmed Daniel's rights. He helped Daniel send a formal notice to the HOA. The notice clearly stated that any entry onto the farm without permission would result in legal action. Daniel also installed simple security cameras at the entrance and along key areas of the farm. Nothing fancy. Just enough to record movement. 2 days passed without incident. Then, on the third evening, headlights appeared again. This time, it was not just one SUV. 3 vehicles stopped near the gate. Daniel watched from a distance, his phone ready. The gate was closed. The signs were clear. The vehicles stayed there for several minutes. People stepped out. They talked among themselves. One of them tried the gate. It did not open. Daniel turned on the lights near the entrance. He walked forward slowly. What do you want? Daniel asked. Linda stepped forward. Her polite smile was gone. You are making this difficult, she said. Daniel held up his phone. You are being recorded, he said. Leave now. Robert stepped closer. You cannot stop progress, he said. Daniel's voice stayed calm. You cannot ignore the law. Silence followed. Finally, Linda raised her hand. Let us go, she said. The vehicles turned around and left. Daniel did not cheer. He did not relax. He knew something important had changed. The HOA was no longer acting casually. They were testing limits, pushing boundaries, hoping Daniel would get tired. But Daniel was not tired. He looked across his farm at the tall pine trees standing firm against the cold night. They had grown slowly, patiently, strongly, just like the resolve building inside him. The pressure did not stop after that night. Instead, it changed shape. Daniel noticed it the next morning when he checked his mailbox. Inside were 2 letters. One came from the HOA office. The other came from a private service company. Both talked about land access, shared responsibility, and community benefit. The words sounded polite, but the meaning was clear. They were trying to push him again. Daniel read the letters slowly. He did not tear them. He did not throw them away. He placed them carefully in his folder. He had learned something important already. When people fail to take what they want by force, they try to take it with paper. That day, fewer families came to the farm. Some turned their cars around after stopping at the entrance. Daniel wondered why. In the afternoon, a regular customer named Sarah approached him quietly. I just wanted you to know, she said, The neighborhood group posted online saying this farm is under dispute. They warned people not to buy trees here. Daniel felt a heavy calm settle inside him. They are trying to scare customers, he said. Sarah nodded. I know it is not true, she said. But some people believe whatever they read. After she left, Daniel stood alone between the trees. This was no longer just about land. It was about reputation. About trust. That evening, Daniel called Paul again. They are spreading false claims, Daniel said. Paul listened carefully. That changes things, he replied. You are allowed to defend your name and your business. The next morning, Daniel took action. He contacted a local newspaper and shared his story. He showed documents. He explained the situation calmly. The reporter listened and asked questions. Daniel answered honestly. 2 days later, the article was published. The headline was simple and clear. Local farmer defends private land from unauthorized claims. The article explained everything. The purchase, the land records, the attempted tree removal, the letters, the warnings sent to customers. Daniel did not celebrate when he saw it online. He simply shared the link on his farm page and pinned it at the top. The response was immediate. People commented with support. Customers shared the article. Some apologized for believing the rumors. Others promised to visit the farm again. That weekend, the road filled with cars once more. Families returned. Children ran between the trees. Laughter came back to the farm. Daniel felt relief, but he stayed alert. On Sunday afternoon, a formal meeting notice arrived. The HOA board requested a final discussion, this time with legal representatives present. Paul advised Daniel to attend. The meeting took place in a larger room at the HOA office. This time, the mood was different. No smiles. No soft words. Everyone looked serious. Linda sat at the head of the table. Robert and Claire were beside her. A legal advisor sat nearby. Daniel entered with Paul. The discussion began with long explanations from the HOA side. They talked about tradition. They talked about visual harmony. They talked about community expectations. Paul listened patiently. When it was Daniel's turn, Paul spoke clearly. The land is private, he said. There is no shared access. There is no agreement. Any attempt to enter or remove property will result in legal consequences. The HOA legal advisor reviewed the documents again. He asked a few questions. He made notes. Finally, he looked at Linda. There is no legal basis for your claim, he said. The room went silent. Robert looked frustrated. So that is it, he said. We just give up. Paul nodded. That is correct, he said. Linda did not speak. She gathered her papers slowly. The meeting ended without arguments. Without drama. Daniel left the building feeling lighter than he had in weeks. Back at the farm, Daniel walked the rows of trees as the sun began to set. The snow reflected soft light. The air was calm again. For the first time since the trouble began, Daniel felt peace. But peace did not last long. 2 nights later, one of the security cameras sent an alert. Movement near the back fence. Daniel checked the feed. A truck was parked on the road. 2 figures stood near the fence line. They were not in uniforms. They looked careful. Daniel called Paul, then contacted local authorities. By the time Daniel reached the fence with a flashlight, the truck was gone. Tire marks remained in the snow. The authorities arrived and took notes. They reviewed the camera footage. This looks like an attempt to test boundaries, one officer said. You did the right thing calling. Daniel nodded. The next day, Daniel added more lighting near the back fence. He also installed a second lock on the gate. He was not afraid. He was prepared. Word spread quickly after that incident. The HOA stopped sending letters. The online posts were removed. The pressure faded. By the end of the week, the farm was busy again. Trees sold steadily. Smiles returned. Daniel stood near the entrance one evening, watching families leave with their chosen trees tied carefully to their cars. He felt proud. Not loud pride. Quiet pride. He protected his land without shouting. Without giving in. Without becoming something he was not. The pine trees stood tall, unchanged by the conflict around them. And Daniel knew now that this land was not just a business. It was a test. And he had passed it. Winter moved forward quietly after that. The tension that once hung over the pine farm slowly disappeared. Days passed without strange cars. Nights stayed calm. The trees stood untouched, their branches full and strong. Daniel kept his routine. He woke early, checked the farm, and greeted visitors with the same steady smile. Business returned to normal. In fact, it grew stronger than before. Many people came not just to buy a tree, but to support him. Some shook his hand. Others said simple words like thank you for standing firm. Daniel accepted it all quietly. One afternoon, an older man named Thomas arrived with his granddaughter. They walked slowly between the trees, talking softly. After choosing a tree, Thomas paused. I read about what happened, he said. You handled it the right way. Daniel nodded. I just protected what was mine, he replied. Thomas smiled. That matters more than people think. As Christmas came closer, the farm became brighter. Lights were placed along the paths. A small fire pit warmed visitors. The sound of laughter filled the air again. Daniel felt something he had not felt in a long time. Belonging. A week before Christmas, Daniel received one final letter from the HOA. He opened it carefully. The letter was short. It stated that the association officially acknowledged the farm as private property and would no longer pursue any claim or involvement. It also included an apology, written carefully but clearly. Daniel placed the letter in his folder and closed it. That chapter was finished. On Christmas Eve, snow fell heavily. The farm closed early. Daniel walked the land one last time before nightfall. The trees stood tall, many already sold, leaving open spaces between rows. Daniel stopped near the center of the farm and looked around. This land had tested him. Not with physical work, but with pressure. With unfair demands. With people who believed power could replace truth. He had learned that silence can be mistaken for weakness. But calm action builds strength. That night, Daniel sat inside his small office, drinking warm tea. The security camera screens were quiet. No movement. No alerts. Outside, the wind moved gently through the remaining trees. Christmas morning arrived peacefully. Daniel did not open the farm that day. He stayed home, rested, and called a few friends. He felt content. The next week, something unexpected happened. A new message appeared on the farm website. It was from a family who lived inside the HOA neighborhood. The message said they admired how Daniel handled the situation. They asked if he would consider partnering with local schools next year to teach children about tree growth and land care. Daniel read the message twice. He smiled. A few days later, Daniel met with teachers, parents, and even a few HOA members. This time, the meeting felt different. Respect replaced control. Listening replaced demands. They talked about education, about nature, about community without ownership. Daniel agreed to host learning days in the spring. Slowly, the farm became something more than a business. It became a place of learning. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. Snow melted. New green growth appeared. The pine trees looked brighter under warm sunlight. Daniel worked the land with care. He repaired fences, planted new trees, expanded walking paths. One afternoon, Linda visited the farm alone. She walked up to Daniel slowly. There was no sharp tone, no guarded smile. I wanted to apologize in person, she said. "We handled things wrong." Daniel listened. "I should have spoken to you first," she continued. "Instead of assuming." Daniel nodded. "Assumptions cause most problems," he said. Linda thanked him and left. Daniel did not feel proud of being right. He felt satisfied that things were settled. By summer, the farm was busier than ever. School visits became regular. Families returned even outside the holiday season. Daniel often watched children learn how trees grow, how patience matters, how land needs respect. He realized something important. Standing up for himself had not pushed people away. It had drawn the right ones closer. One evening, Daniel sat near the same spot where the HOA security once stood. The tape was long gone. The memory felt distant now. The farm was quiet again. But this time, it was a good quiet. Daniel looked across the land and felt grateful. Not because he won a fight, but because he kept his values. The pine farm was his, not just by paper, but by effort, care, and honesty. And no one could take that away.